others on specific questions. And that was a really broad overview, but would welcome Chair if you or the committee have any questions or want to dig into anything further.
Well, this group usually does. On that page, I'll see the 120, a list of these 120 different documents that you or not that you've been that somehow are impacted by this activity.
We don't have that on the website, do we?
Yeah, so the webpage is public facing, and so that is a list that, you know, our project team has been using internally. We haven't published on the website.
Okay.
But it's certainly something that we could share if it was of interest to you.
And
It's a nice
All
little
of
list.
that. I just
yeah,
trying to understand the depth of what you're talking about is a part of what I was kind of interested in.
and I would say, you know, some examples are those modal plans that I talked about, but I think the complete streets guidance is a really easy example to emphasize how that was a document that stands alone right now. We updated it about a year ago, and it really incorporates how we incorporate complete streets into all of our projects, but that's one specifically that it's essentially going to be a companion document to this, where it's interlinked, intertwined. We're not necessarily going to update the whole thing because we did put in a lot of effort on it, but how do we make sure that when you pick up this multimodal guide, that it's really easy for you to see, oh yeah, and don't forget there's more specifics about complete streets here, or more specifics about, you know, anything else that you might need. And so that list of 120, as you point out, it's a lot, but that's why we have a great consultant team on board to help us through that.
Representative White.
Thank you. And this is exciting because Representative Lally has been talking a lot about design standards up. So now I get a sense of what she was talking about. Could you, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the depth and breadth of what this document or project will do. So I just want to talk hypothetically, or ask you to kind of lead me through hypothetically, like, are we talking about, for example, a village center and suggestions for where a bike path or sidewalk or native plants? I mean, will it stormwater, like how in depth, and will these recommendations or standards go?
So I would say that the depth of this is primarily to focus on what is the best transportation design for the intended use or the context of the location. So in your example, it would be based on the cyclist use in this area. Is a 4-foot shoulder going to be appropriate? Is a 6-foot shoulder with a 2-foot buffered lane going to be appropriate? Is a shared use path going to be appropriate? So it will give engineers and planners tools that could be applied. But one of the things that the engineers will have to balance is, are there other constraints within that downtown or that village area, for example, where perhaps the shared use path might be the best, most comfortable cyclist facility, but if there are buildings close to the roadway, how can we come up with that flexibility for them to make sure that they're balancing all of the constraints, but then meeting the intent of the land use as best as possible? So every situation will be a little bit different, but the depth of this will be focused on the transportation infrastructure, and then something like the plantings that might be recommended or not. That would be something that whether this document references other documents that we have for our landscape architecture group, or otherwise, this will probably not get into that level of detail, but
A little bit outside the scope. Okay, thank you.
yeah, no problem.
Well,
Thank you, Erin. This is very exciting to see all of this. So I am very interested in the possibility of using this as a vehicle for placemaking in our communities. So really to enable that transformative vision that we're hoping the changes in land use and all the housing that we're hoping to build can really bring about. So, you know, one of the ideas that was, mentioned at one time, I think maybe last biennium, was thinking about the possibility of having places in our communities using our roads this very centers of places as like, almost like a piazza or something, bringing that kind of sort of a vision of place to just like a moment, in a like a village or something like that. And do you think that it would be possible to, just a moment where, okay, a truck can get through, but it just has to slow down really slowly? Because the highest need in that particular, momentary segment is really for businesses and for gathering people and social engagement and all the other things that we're looking to do. Are you, to get back to the question of depth and breadth, is that what you are envisioning this could be? Maybe not right away, but like we're setting the stage for having those kinds of opportunities in our state.
I think that's a good way to put it, that this can help set the stage where we're doing that marriage of transportation and land use. And so I don't envision this having specific placemaking type opportunities. However, that's where the planning side of things and the municipal plans and the regional plans, in concert with what is this infrastructure, transportation infrastructure project doing as it comes through, that won't inhibit that from occurring, or something that when we acknowledge that the businesses in the downtown communities want to include placemaking, again, we can try to plan our transportation from a vehicular truck, emergency vehicle perspective, in concert with the use of the bikes and pedestrians in the area. And it's sort of where those two concepts have to be married. And so this probably won't get into that detail of specific placemaking options and opportunities, but it will be in alignment with the regional plans and the land use. So that way, hopefully, neither opportunities precluding anything down the road. So I think it's getting in that direction, but may not go into that amount of detail.
Yeah, I just want to follow up question. Are you guys presenting this wonderful work that you're doing to the commerce committees? So, I mean, they have jurisdiction over the designation programs. And it seems like they might be quite interested to know that this is happening and that you guys are thinking that way. So I asked yesterday, we had testimony from the downtown designation folks, are trying to understand if you guys are working together or would be working together. And I know that you're trying to, what are the things that we can do as policymakers to support this fantastic work?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I think that we are not currently on their agendas for those committees. However, our partnership with ACCD in this effort is a good example of perhaps bringing that back to them to talk about what those opportunities might be and understanding their involvement, and where we make sure that both of those types of efforts are in alignment. So they haven't currently asked.
Okay, I'm allowed to say one more thing.
It's your floor until you say thank you.
So where, thank you, everybody, for indulging me. So where, this is my whole thing, right? So where I'm going with this is, they have tax credits in their program, and this, to have nice things in our communities, it costs money. And so there might be some opportunities to work with the private sector, in places like St. Albans have done some of this with a TIF, I mean, we're working on getting like more scalable tools for some of these things, but it seems like, a menu of great stuff that you could do might be, kind of work well with some of the incentives and tax credits that come with that as we rebuild our communities and hopefully everything resilient. And I would also like to make a plug for, with Patrick in the room, EV charging, like on-street parking, EV charging, and you go shopping or get a meal or something while you're, doing your thing.
And yeah, I appreciate the comments, and in alignment with commerce and making sure that, again, we're working in concert with each other so that we know what the downtown community and commerce type vision is. We understand the transportation vision that can best accommodate that, and then we're blending the two. And so this will be a focus on the transportation side of it, but that's where our partnership with ACCD and others is super valuable. So appreciate the comments, and we'll keep, as we work through the details through the next phases, I know that we'll be in touch and we can keep making sure that we're addressing it and merging the two as best we can.
Great, thank you.
Representative Powell.
Yeah, thanks for this. couple of questions. One is, in the outreach, when you look at other states, what are other folks doing? Are we like right where they are and they're all sort of doing this sort of approach of being ahead of the curve, in the curve, behind the curve? And are you learning in this process, learning or adopting really significant differences, I guess?
Yeah, so far from my observation, we're in the top percentile of the curve. So a lot of folks have already gone in this direction, which makes us feel some amount of comfortability with that it's the right move and that it's working for other states. And so there's definitely a level of comfort there. But because we're doing it with the sort of cutting edge of other state DOTs and the national guidance, it definitely feels like it's leading and progressive enough that we're really excited about it. And so I would say a lot of the shifts that we talked about today are absolutely consistent with what other states are doing. And they've had some lessons learned that we've been talking about that we know how we can be a little bit more proactive as well. So I think we're in this really comfortable area of being progressive and moving ahead with other progressive states that makes us feel really excited about it.
And then sort of a follow on, when we sort of look at this, we can easily look at it and say, oh, this just costs more money than, if we didn't do it. But are there opportunities there or that you see when with strong standards to follow, strong updated, latest standards to follow, that in fact, that can, add to efficiency, maybe not necessarily reduce costs because they're always going to go up, but add to the efficiency of the whole process, or the final product is, has a design that's, longer lasting, more incorporating of things, that kind of thing.
Yep, that's always the balance. And my perspective would be that this will help us focus on investing the right money for the context for the area. And so it's a slightly more concerted effort to make sure that we understand the long range planning, the land use planning, the transportation planning, and that we are investing the right money so that we can justify why we're treating a certain area in a certain way. And not to say that every situation is going to get everything that they may desire, but how do we make sure that we can all at the end of the day say that we invested the best money that we could for the best outcome that we could produce at that time? And it absolutely will be a slow shift. All of this won't happen overnight, but this will set the stage for getting us more in alignment with that. So it's about investing the right resources into the right thing.
Anybody else?
I do have one more.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate Representative Couch's question, trying to kind of look at economic return in a sense, but I would guess that this type of planning, we could see returns in terms of safety with this type of planning and thinking about whether it's I can't remember the language you were using, major collector, which is merging a whole type, lots of different vehicular traffic. So safety, also commerce, as was mentioned earlier, when we are thinking about the businesses and making sure pedestrian access to them happens, that's an economic driver as well. And then lastly, resiliency, as we have, I need to say that everybody knows about the flooding, but I would imagine that some of this planning is also thinking about resiliency as you're working with the land maps and so forth.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's always a balance of all of those things and more, right? Where any treatment that we do is with the idea of safe and mobile users in mind, and resilient infrastructure. Absolutely. We've been shifting in that direction for probably more than a decade. And of course, it's front of everyone's mind now. So it's always that balance of meeting all of those needs as best as we can. And how do we understand if there has to be trade-offs in some circumstance.
All right, well, thank you very much for the input and for the work and for the committee. I guess we are adjourned for this afternoon. And with my usual, you don't have